The man with the quiet voice. It was a rainy morning in Los Angeles. The kind of morning where the sky stayed heavy and gray, and people tucked their chins deep into their coats, avoiding eye contact, rushing to get inside. In the middle of downtown, a small local bank branch sat quietly on the corner of 6th and Spring. It wasn't the kind of place where people expected anything unusual. But today, something unusual was about to happen. A man walked in through the glass doors, slowly, gently, almost as if he didn't want to disturb the peace inside. His beard was slightly unkempt, his boots worn but clean, and he carried no umbrella despite the rain. Some customers glanced his way. The security guard leaned forward slightly, just to make sure. The man didn't look like trouble. He just looked different. His name was Keanu Reeves. But no one noticed. Not really. He waited patiently in line. He didn't pull out his phone. He didn't sigh or look frustrated like others did. Instead, he just stood there, hands in his pockets, glancing around, observing. The line was slow, but he didn't mind. He wasn't in a hurry. Not for what he came for. At the counter stood a young woman with bright nails and a name tag that read, Kelly. She was talking with an older man who seemed confused about his bank account. She smiled at him kindly, helped him through the process, and finally waved him off. The line moved. Next came a man in a business suit, tapping on his phone, barely, glancing at her as he handed over a deposit slip. Then another, and another. Finally, it was Keanu's turn. He stepped forward, calm and soft-spoken. "Good morning," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Kelly didn't look up right away. She just reached for the next form. "What can I help you with today?" she asked, half-distracted. Keanu gently placed a small envelope and his California driver's license on the counter. "I need to open a temporary corporate holding account," he said. Kelly raised her head slowly. She stared at him. Her brow furrowed. "Are you serious?" she asked, glancing at the ID, then back at him. "Yes," he replied with the same calm. She stared again. "This says you're Keanu Reeves," she said, her voice half amused, half suspicious. He nodded politely. "Yes, that's me." Kelly picked up the ID, turned it around in her hand, then without warning, dropped it on the floor. It hit the tile with a soft click. The people nearby turned. "Nice try," she said flatly. "We don't play games here." Keanu didn't flinch. He simply bent down, picked up the ID, and stood back up. The branch manager, a tall man named Greg with slicked back hair, had started watching from a distance. He stepped closer. "Everything all right here?" Greg asked. Kelly crossed her arms. "This guy says he's Keanu Reeves." Greg raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Keanu didn't argue. He handed over the ID again, quietly. Greg took it, stared at it carefully, then at the man's face. His expression shifted. He wasn't sure yet, but something told him the man was telling the truth. "What's the purpose of the account?" Greg asked. "It's for a private donation project," Keanu replied. "Anonymous if possible. But it needs a holding name. I was told this branch handles private files well." Greg hesitated. "How much are we talking about?" Keanu looked him in the eye. $2.3 billion, Kelly let out a laugh. "Come on, man. Now you're just messing with us." But Greg wasn't laughing. He had started sweating. The next few seconds were tense. The room went quiet. Greg cleared his throat. "Mr. Reeves, can we speak in my office, please?" Keanu nodded and followed him quietly. Kelly watched, arms still crossed, not believing what she had just witnessed. Behind the closed door, Greg fumbled with his phone and pulled up a photo. He held it next to Keanu's face. "I apologize for the doubt. You look different in person." Keanu smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." "So," Greg said, sitting down slowly, "what exactly is this about?" Keanu leaned forward. "There's a school. It's run by an elderly woman in Colorado. She has 600 kids enrolled, most of them can't afford to eat. She doesn't know yet, but the entire place is about to be funded. I just need a place to temporarily route the funds until legal transfers can be made. Greg's mouth fell slightly open. Why you? He asked. Keanu shrugged. I met her once, when I was a boy. While Greg processed that, outside the office, Kelly was now scrolling on her phone. Her screen showed an article titled Keanu Reeves to launch Silent Giving Project in 2025. She paused, her face draining color. Slowly, she stood and peeked through the office window. Her heart dropped. She had thrown his ID on the floor. 20 minutes later, Keanu walked out of the office with a folder in hand. He stopped at the counter and looked at Kelly. She was speechless. Her lips trembled. I'm so ... Sorry, she said. Keanu nodded gently. Have a good day. He turned and walked toward the door, but before he left, something strange happened. A man in a torn jacket ran into the bank yelling. He looked scared, confused, and desperate. Help! Someone help me! My daughter, she's choking in the car. Number 1 moved at first. Everyone froze. Then Keanu Reeves dropped his folder and ran outside. Outside, in a rusted sedan, a little girl about 5 years old was turning blue. Her father was trying to pull her out of the seat, panicking. Keanu leaned in, calmly lifted the girl out, placed her on the ground, and tilted her head back. People rushed out to help. Call 911. Someone shouted. But Keanu was already performing CPR. 2 breaths. 30 COMPR, ESSIONs. Then again. The girl coughed. And then, she cried. The whole street seemed to pause. People stared in awe. The same man who had been told he wasn't welcome was now saving a life in the rain. Kelly stepped outside. She watched. From the bank steps, her eyes wide, her heart thudding. The security guard beside her whispered, "That's actually him." She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. And inside the bank office, Greg stared at the folder on his desk, the one that said Silent Partners Foundation. Under it, a name was signed in black ink. Keanu Charles Reeves, he whispered under his breath. We almost lost this. Over a moment of pride. But outside, Keanu wasn't thinking about any of that. He was holding the little girl in his arms, her head resting against his chest, and he was smiling softly, not because someone finally believed him, but because she was alive. And that was all that mattered. Whispers in the Rankth ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics took the little girl from Keanu's arms gently. Her father kept thanking him over and over, tears running down his face. Keanu didn't say much. He just placed a hand on the man's shoulder and nodded. The rain kept falling, but he didn't seem to care. Neither did the crowd that had gathered on the sidewalk. Everyone was frozen in that strange moment, between tragedy and relief. Inside the bank, Kelly stood by the window, her hands shaking. Greg walked up behind her quietly. Did you know he saved someone before? He said. She looked at him. A woman on the freeway, her car flipped. He pulled her out himself. Kelly swallowed hard. I thought he was just trying to trick me. Greg nodded. You thought he was too quiet to be powerful. She looked away. He was so calm. I didn't think he was anyone important. Greg turned toward the lobby. People who really have power usually are. Keanu returned a few minutes later to collect the folder he had dropped. Water dripped from his jacket, but he looked peaceful. Greg handed him a towel. You all right? Keanu smiled. Yes. She's going to be okay. I'm glad, Greg said softly, then hesitated. Listen. I'd like to offer something. Our private banking team can assign a manager to oversee your project. We'll handle everything discreetly. No fees, no noise. Keanu paused. Thank you, he said. He turned to leave again. But before he could go, Kelly stepped forward from behind the counter. She didn't know what to say. Words kept catching in her throat. Finally she managed, I shouldn't have treated you that way. I'm sorry. Keanu didn't say anything for a moment. Then he looked at her and said gently, "It's okay. We all have days where we misread people. I've had mine too." He walked out again. And this time, everyone watched him go. Later that day, the story made its way online. Not because Keanu posted it, not because the father made a video, but because someone across the street had captured it all. A man running into a bank, screaming for help. A quiet stranger rushing outside, CPR in the rain. A child coming back to life. The video went viral within hours. But strangely, the face of the man in the video was never fully shown. The angle, the hood, the low light, it kept his identity mostly hidden. Except for one person who knew. Kelly. The next morning, the bank lobby felt different. People looked around more, spoke less. There was a new respect in the air. And when Greg came in, he walked straight to Kelly's desk. "We're going to need to speak," he said. Kelly nodded, already knowing why. Inside his office, Greg took out a printed sheet from the file Keanu had left behind. "This is the legal paperwork," he explained. "It's real, the Silent Partners Foundation. It's linked to an offshore account with clean capital and anonymous donors." Kelly looked at the document. Greg added, "It wasn't just for the school. It's a whole network. Keanu Reeves is one of several founders. They fund hospitals, orphanages, recovery centers, even homes for abused animals." Kelly's voice trembled. "I treated him like a liar," Greg nodded. "And he still forgave you." Kelly wiped her eyes. "I don't deserve to be part of this." "Maybe not yesterday," Greg said, "but today's a new day." That evening, Keanu sat in a quiet room in his small home, not a mansion, but a comfortable old place with wooden floors and soft yellow lighting. On the table before him was a photo of his mother. He lit a small candle beside it. "You told me once," he whispered, "that humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less." He smiled. "I still forget sometimes." He reached for a file nearby and made a note: "One more donation to a domestic violence shelter in Arizona. No names. No press." Then he picked up a small wooden carving. It was a gift from the school principal in Colorado, the same woman who had once given him shelter as a teenager when he was broke, alone, and scared. He placed the carving beside the candle. It was a tiny sculpture of a dove. Peaceful, simple, just like him. The next day, a journalist named Marie from a small community newspaper knocked on the bank's front door. She had traced the source of the foundation to this branch. Greg met her and politely declined to give details, but just before she left, she turned back and asked, "Was it really him?" Greg smiled slightly. "Who?" "The man in the video. The one who saved the girl." Greg shrugged. "Could be anyone. But do you know for sure?" Greg paused. "Let me tell you something," he said. "We spend too much time trying to figure out who someone is. Maybe what matters more is what they do." He closed the door gently. A week passed. Account had been created and funds were moving. Greg assigned a private specialist. The process was smooth. But something unexpected happened. Kelly came to work early one morning and found an envelope on her desk. No stamp. No name. Inside was a note written in careful black ink. "Dear Kelly, you were right to question me. Always question things. But never forget, behind every stranger, there may be a story bigger than what your eyes can see. Sincerely, a man who still believes in people." Beneath the note was a donation slip. A $25,000 scholarship fund in her name for women studying finance from underprivileged backgrounds. She broke down crying in the back room. A month later, Greg received a private invitation. No press, no lights. Just a small dinner at a hidden foundation lodge in Northern California. He went. Keanu was there. He wasn't at the front. He wasn't on the mic. He was just sitting at the back table, pouring tea for an elderly man beside him. Greg nodded at him across the room. Keanu smiled, then turned back to serve the next guest. Not everyone in the room knew who he was, and he didn't mind that at all. But while all this was unfolding, something darker was brewing elsewhere. Someone inside the banking network had started leaking whispers about the foundation, about hidden celebrity donors, about massive untracked funds. Greed has sharp ears, and soon, someone powerful wanted in, someone who would not take no for an answer. It started with a single call to Greg's office. Man named Richard Hamilton, owner of one of the biggest hedge funds on the West Coast. He wanted to speak to the man behind the Silent Partners Foundation. Greg didn't return the call. So Richard made a visit, and when he came, he brought cameras. Keanu wasn't there, but the silence he left behind, it would soon become louder than any noise Richard could make. The man behind the glass. The black car pulled up slowly in front of the bank branch on 6th and Spring. It was a bright morning, no clouds in sight. A sharp contrast from the day Keanu Reeves walked through the same doors in the rain. But something about this morning felt colder, despite the sunshine. The back door of the sleek black car opened, and out stepped a man in a tailored navy suit, expensive sunglasses, and a watch worth more than most people's homes. Richard Hamilton, known in the financial world as the Razor. He didn't believe in kindness. He believed in control. He walked toward the bank entrance with two assistants behind him, both carrying leather folders and notepads. A camera crew waited discreetly across the street, not for a news story, but for footage he could use in his next investor meeting. Richard wanted power, and he had a new target inside the bank. Greg was reviewing files when he looked up and saw Richard walk in. His stomach tightened. He stood up slowly, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the lobby. "Mr. Hamilton," Greg said, extending a hand. "We didn't expect you." Richard didn't take the hand. He just smiled. "You didn't return my call. That usually means either you're scared or you're hiding something." Greg stayed calm. "We value our clients' privacy. If you'd like to open an account, I'd be happy to refer you to our private team." Richard smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's not play games. I know about the Silent Partners Foundation. I know who's behind it. I want in." Greg's jaw tensed. "We are not at liberty to discuss confidential." "You will," Richard cut in. "Or I'll buy your branch, fire everyone, and get what I want anyway." A few heads turned. Kelly peeked over her screen, her pulse quickening. Richard stepped closer. "This isn't just charity, Greg. It's infrastructure, networks, influence. You think the man who started it wants to stay invisible forever? No one gives away that kind of money without an angle." Greg stayed silent. Richard leaned in. "KeanuReeves is a brand. I'll make him 10 times richer. We go public with the foundation. Sell the story. Documentaries, ads, influence. He gets a fortune. I get the glory. And you, well, you keep your job." Greg finally spoke. "He doesn't want glory," Richard laughed. "Everyone wants glory." That night, Greg drove out to a quiet spot on the edge of town, a cabin hidden behind rows of trees. He knocked on the door. Keanu opened it. He looked like he'd just finished sweeping the floor. A soft scent of wood and tea floated in the air. "Something happened today," Greg said, stepping inside. Keanu offered him a chair. "Tell me." Greg explained everything. The visit, the threats, the cameras. Keanu listened in silence. Then he stood up, walked to a drawer, and took out a small envelope. He handed it to Greg. "What's this?" Greg asked. "A transfer order," Keanu replied. "I'm moving the foundation to another system. One with no name, one that can't be traced." Greg looked at the paper. "But ... the children, the schools. If he comes after them, he won't," Keanu said firmly. "He doesn't see them. He only sees the money. Greg shook his head. You could just speak up. Show people who you really are. They'll defend you. Keanu gave a small smile. I'd rather defend them. Meanwhile, Richard made another move. He contacted a tech company that specialized in tracing private accounts. He ordered a full digital hunt quietly. And within a week, he had found traces of the offshore holding. Not enough to expose everything, but enough to stir rumors. He leaked it to a popular business podcast. And the host said the words that set off the fuse. There's a secret billion-dollar foundation. And some say the face behind it is none other than Hollywood legend Keanu Reeves. Within hours, the internet lit up. Some said it couldn't be true. Some said it explained everything. Others mocked it. Keanu? The guy from the movies? He's funding schools now? But others remembered the girl saved in the rain. They remembered the stories. The waitress he once tipped $20,000. The quiet visit to a cancer ward. The man who rode the subway alone. Maybe it wasn't so far-fetched after all. At the bank, Kelly watched it all unfold. People came in now just to ask questions. Is it true? They asked, did he really come here? Do you have photos? Kelly just smiled and shook her head. Some things are better left unspoken. But deep inside, she worried. Because with noise comes danger. Richard, now feeling unstoppable, made his next play. He held a private dinner at his estate. Media executives, investment sharks, corporate elites. And at the center of the table sat a presentation. The Keanu Reeves brand project. His plan was clear: take control of the narrative. Turn the foundation into a global product. Launch documentaries, partner with brands, sell influence under the mask of generosity. He ended the dinner with a bold claim. By the end of this quarter, we'll own the story. The crowd clapped. Except for one person in the back. A silent guest. Invited by mistake. A woman with gray hair and a soft voice. Mrs. Hill. The school principal from Colorado. She had come, thinking this was a donor dinner, but when she heard the pitch, her heart broke. She left quietly before dessert. And the next day, she called Keanu. He answered on the second ring. I didn't know where else to go, she said. They want to use you. They want to twist this. Keanu paused. No. Why don't you stop them? His voice was gentle. Because they can't reach me. Not where it matters. She didn't understand at first. But by the end of the call, she did. And she cried. Not because she was afraid, but because in a world full of men who wanted to be seen, she had found one who wanted others to be noticed instead. But Richard had one final trick. He discovered that the foundation still needed one final approval from a bank headquarters in New York for a separate transfer. So he flew there himself. He walked into the tall glass building, sat across from a board of directors, and said, I represent the future of this operation. The man who started it won't step up, but I will. Give me control, and I'll make this the most influential brand of our generation. He smiled as he passed them his portfolio, but the chairwoman held up a small letter. We've already received a counter request, she said. Richard's smile faltered. From who? He asked. Someone who doesn't need cameras to prove his worth. Richard's eyes narrowed. This letter, she continued, came with a donation check for $5 million. Signed simply, a quiet believer in good. Richard stood silent. You've been outplayed, she said calmly. He stormed out of the building. 2 days later, Keanu sat at a simple table outside a small diner. Across from him was a boy who used to live on the streets. Now he had a scholarship, a safe home, and a future. They were eating pancakes. The boy asked, Are you famous? Keanu smiled. Sometimes. The boy thought for a second. Is that why people try to take things from you? Keanu sipped his tea. They can take stories, but not purpose. The boy nodded, unsure if he fully understood, but he knew it sounded true. Keanu stood, paid the bill, and left a quiet tip, $1,000 in cash, tucked in a napkin. Written on the napkin were 6 words: give what you can, then give more. And then he disappeared into the morning crowd. Without a camera in sight. Asterisk, the mask they couldn't remove. News didn't stop. It spread like a fire that no one could put out. Articles, tweets, video blogs, everyone had an opinion. Now some called Keanu Reeves a secret angel. Others said he was just another rich man hiding behind a charity. Some demanded interviews, some made memes. Others tried to guess how much money he really had. But through all the noise, the one person who stayed completely silent was Keanu himself. No statements, no press. Only actions. And those were louder than anything words could say. At the small bank on 6th and Spring, Kelly arrived early one morning to find an envelope taped to the back door. No return address, no message. Just a single photograph. Inside. A group of smiling children at a school playground, holding handmade signs. One sign said, "Thank you, Mr. K." Another said, "We got books." And another, held by a girl with missing teeth, read, "I can dream now." Kelly stared at the photo for a long time. Her heart grew heavy, but warm. She turned the photo over. On the back, written in soft ink, were 5 simple words: "You were part of this." She sat down on the steps and cried, not out of guilt anymore. But out of gratitude. Meanwhile, in a luxury boardroom somewhere across Los Angeles, Richard Hamilton was not giving up. His pride had been bruised. His plan had failed, but he still had one last card. A lawsuit. His legal team sent letters to the bank, the foundation office, and even to media outlets. He claimed financial misconduct. He accused the foundation of laundering money, of misleading the public. He knew the truth wasn't on his side. But in his world, the truth didn't matter. What mattered was fear. If he could scare them into silence, he could take control again. The next morning, Greg walked into the bank to find chaos. Reporters outside, emails flooding the system, legal notices. But in the middle of it all, something unexpected happened. A group of parents came in, ones who had heard the rumors but remembered what Keanu did for their kids' school. They brought letters. Handwritten, heartfelt, emotional letters. Each one was addressed to the man who didn't wait for credit. Some were from children who could now read. Others from mothers who could now feed their families. They left the letters on the front counter and walked away. Word spread. Within days, more letters came in. From all across the country. Keanu sat quietly at a wooden desk in his home, a candle burning beside him as he read each one. His eyes didn't fill with tears, but his heart did. Some thanked him, some called him an angel. One simply said, "I don't know who you are, but you gave me hope. That's enough." He folded each letter carefully, placed it in a box, and closed the lid gently. He wrote on the top in pencil, "This is what matters." But the lawsuit moved forward. Richard's legal team demanded that Keanu appear in court. They wanted him to speak, to defend himself, to prove the foundation was real and not a scam. They wanted to drag him into the spotlight. Greg called him. "They're forcing you," he said. "They want you to show your face in front of the world." Keanu was quiet for a while. Then he replied, "Let them look." The courtroom was filled. Press lined the back. Richard Hamilton sat with his team of lawyers in the front row, smug and ready. Across the room, Keanu sat alone. No lawyer. No manager. No entourage. Just a small folder on his lap. The judge entered, called the room to order, and began the hearing. Richard's lawyer stood first, speaking loudly, confidently. "We are here because there has been no transparency. A man, claiming to be an actor, has moved billions through a foundation with no public board, no registered oversight, and no business plan. This is suspicious. This demands answers." The judge nodded. "Mr. Reeves, your response?" Keanu stood up slowly. His voice was calm. "I don't have a defense," he said softly. People murmured. Richard smiled, but Keanu continued. "I didn't create the foundation to make money or get followers. or be on TV. I made it because I met a boy once who was stealing bread to feed his sister, and I couldn't forget his face. The room fell silent. I made it because a teacher gave me a meal when I was hungry, because a nurse stayed with me through a night I thought I wouldn't survive, because someone showed me kindness when they had nothing. He looked at the judge. You want numbers? I don't have them. I gave everything I could, and others did too. Not for credit, not for fame, just because we could. The judge leaned forward. Do you have any documents to prove the funds were used legally? Keanu opened his folder. Quietly, he placed letters on the table, handwritten ones, from children, from schools, from hospitals, from homes, rebuilt after fire, from mothers who could finally sleep without fear. He didn't speak again. He just let the letters speak for him. The judge read them, one by one, and at the end, the judge looked at Richard. Do you have anything to say? Richard stood, furious. This is emotional manipulation. It's not legal proof. The judge paused. Sometimes, he said slowly, the strongest proof is the lives changed. He slammed his gavel once. Case dismissed. Richard turned pale. The press turned wild, but Keanu walked out quietly. Just like he walked in, outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mr. Reeves, do you want to say anything? He stopped just once. He looked into the camera and said only this: do something kind today, even if no one sees it. Then he walked away, and the crowd didn't chase him. They just watched in silence. Days passed. Richard Hamilton's investors pulled out. His name became mud in financial circles. He gave one final interview, bitter and angry. You can't trust the quiet ones, he said. They'll always surprise you. As for Keanu, he returned to the shadows, not because he was hiding, but because the work was never about him. In a small village in India, a new water well was built. In a refugee camp in Poland, a mobile school bus arrived. In a women's shelter in Texas, brand new. Beds and blankets were delivered. No press release. No name attached. Only a stamped envelope that read, from a man who still believes in tomorrow. And somewhere in Colorado, at a school on a hill, a teacher asked her class, who here knows what it means to be a hero? A little girl raised her hand. It's someone who helps and doesn't ask for anything back. The teacher smiled. That's right. And on her desk sat a photo of a man in a raincoat, holding a small girl in his arms. The man didn't smile, but his eyes said everything. The secret room. No one saw. Months passed since the courtroom silence stunned the world. Keanu Reeves disappeared again, not into hiding, but into the folds of normal life. While Hollywood begged for interviews and social media screamed for comments, he quietly continued his journey. No headlines, no stage, just heart. People eventually stopped chasing him. The noise died down, and in that calm silence, the truth began to spread, not through tabloids or fame, but through whispers, through good deeds, through lives quietly changed. But even in peace, shadows waited. Somewhere far from Los Angeles, a man sat in a room filled with screens. Data flickered, profiles flashed. Donation patterns flowed like rivers on his digital map. His name was Victor Armand. He wasn't interested in helping others. He was interested in controlling them. He had worked with intelligence groups, built networks for companies who wanted access to people's secrets. And when he heard about a foundation moving billions without credit, without digital traceability, without central control, he grew obsessed. Unlike Richard Hamilton, Victor didn't want fame. He wanted access. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu walked through a quiet alleyway behind a library. Tucked behind it was a building no one would expect, a repurposed shelter, now a learning center for disabled youth. He didn't go in through the front. He entered through a side door, bringing a bag of donated tablets, quietly setting them on a desk before the staff arrived. He left a note. No receipt needed. Just smiles. But one boy saw him. His name was Jamal, a teenager with hearing loss and a passion for building things. He watched Keanu from a distance, unsure if he was dreaming. He rushed to the door, waving his arms. Keanu turned, surprised. Jamal signed with his hands. Was it really you? Keanu smiled, signed back. Just a helper, Jamal beamed. Can I help too? Keanu nodded. You already are. Meanwhile, Victor tracked everything. He followed threads that others missed: small donations, timing patterns, shared storage, addresses. And eventually, he found something unusual. A small storage unit in Northern California, paid in cash, listed under a forgotten pseudonym, J. Winter. Inside, he found thousands of handwritten letters, thank you notes, sketches from children, donation receipts made in others' names. But one thing shocked him most: a wall, covered in photos not of Keanu, but of others, people who had helped. Teachers, nurses, shelter directors, volunteers. Under each photo, a simple message was written: heroes are not rare. They're just quiet. Victor stood frozen. For the first time, he didn't feel power. He felt small. Back in the city, Kelly received an unexpected call from Greg. You need to come to the office, now. She rushed over. On the desk was an envelope. Thick, sealed, no name. Inside was a blueprint. It showed plans for a new facility, an independent community trust center designed to provide food, shelter, learning, and job help. And right at the top was a familiar scribbled note: for the forgotten corners of our world. Greg looked at her. He wants us to run it. Kelly's mouth fell open. Us? Greg nodded. He trusts us, not because we're perfect, but because we learned. They sat there for a long moment. Then Kelly whispered. I dropped his ID on the floor. Greg smiled. And now he's given you the keys to a better world. In a quiet forest lodge 2 states away, Keanu sat by a fireplace, with a notebook in his lap. Across from him sat a woman in her 80s, Elena, a survivor of war who now taught art therapy to veterans. He was listening, not speaking, just listening. People forget, she said softly. They think love is loud, but the most powerful kind is quiet, patient, invisible. Keanu nodded slowly. Then we should make more of it. And from that conversation, a new idea was born. A secret room, not one made of walls and windows. But a system, digital sanctuary where no one's name was required to give or receive. Anonymous kindness. A modern fountain that kept no record of who turned on the tap. But to build it, he needed help. Not tech giants. Not influencers. He needed believers. So he called Jamal. Jamal was shocked. Me? Keanu nodded. You see the world in a different way. That's what this needs. Jamal grinned. But I'm just a kid. You're a kid who asked to help, Keanu said. That already makes you more powerful than most adults. They worked together in the evenings, building something. Quiet, private, safe. Jamal called it the kindness circuit. It was a place where a teacher in Brazil could receive chalk from a donor in Norway. Where a mother in India could find shelter funded by someone in Wisconsin. No usernames. No fame. Just hearts speaking across silence. And it began to work. But Victor wasn't done. He found traces of the project. Encrypted signals, private tests, Jamal's IP address. And one night he breached it. He cracked the wall, and what he found was not weakness but beauty. He stared at the screen. A message was waiting for him. Just 3 lines. We saw you. We forgive. You want to help? Victor froze. He had expected FIREWALLS. He found an invitation. And for the first time in decades, he didn't know what to do. He closed the laptop. He looked in the mirror. And he cried. A few weeks later, Greg, Kelly, Jamal, and several others gathered in the new trust center. It wasn't grand. No cameras. No ribbon. but a few families walked. In people who had nowhere else to go, and they found warm soup. Soft blankets. And kind eyes. Keanu wasn't there, but his presence filled every corner. On the wall near the entrance, someone had painted a quote: "What if the greatest gift you ever give is believing in someone no one else sees?" Jamal added a drawing beneath it, a dove flying into light. And in that moment, they all knew this wasn't about Keanu Reeves anymore. This was about all of them. About everyone. About kindness that didn't ask for credit. About love that didn't need a spotlight. And about one man, a man whose ID was once thrown on the floor, who taught the world to lift each other up instead. Asterisk the legacy that never asked for a mammoth city moved on. Banks reopened. Streets stayed busy. Headlines shifted to newer, louder stories. But in quiet corners of the world, places most media never cared about, something had changed forever. In the dusty village of Burpur, India, a child sipped clean water from a new well. In the hills of Peru, a grandmother finally received medication her village clinic never had. And in the heart of Los Angeles, at a corner once forgotten, the new trust center opened its doors again. No metal detectors, no security guards, just soft music and warm food. They called it the Lighthouse. But there was no plaque. No marble statue, and no mention of the man who made it possible, because he didn't want his name on it. One evening, Greg, Kelly, and Jamal sat together on the lighthouse rooftop. It was quiet. The sun was setting behind tall buildings. Birds flew low, and laughter floated up from families eating below. Jamal held a folder in his lap. Inside was a handwritten letter. He passed it to Kelly. She opened it slowly. Dear Jamal, Greg, and Kelly, I built the foundation to be invisible so it could serve without distraction. I never wanted it to be mine, only yours and theirs. And anyone who dares to believe the world still has good left in it. There will be pressure from people who want to buy kindness, who want to name it, label it, sell it. Don't let them. Protect the silence, not because it hides us, but because it honors others. Thank you for seeing what most people missed, for giving what others would have punished. And for becoming the kind of people who don't need applause to keep doing what's right. Quietly with you. Kelly's eyes welled up. Jamal looked down and whispered, "He's not just an actor, he's a builder." Greg nodded. "A builder of hearts." Somewhere else, far away, Keanu Reeves walked into a small, forgotten movie theater. The lights were flickering. The popcorn machine was broken. Only 6 people were inside, and the screen was scratched. But the film playing was a local documentary one about teachers in conflict zones. He sat at the back. Alone. Watching stories of people far more heroic than him. After it ended, the filmmaker, a young woman with frizzy hair and shy eyes, stood in front to answer questions. No one asked much, but Keanu walked up afterward. "You made something powerful," he said. She blinked. "Thanks. Wait, you look familiar." He smiled. "I just came to watch." She hesitated. "Are you him?" He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a card. On it, one sentence: "Whatever you make next, don't let the world scare it out of you." And he walked out before she could say anything else. Months passed, then years, and the kindness circuit, built quietly with Jamal, grew into a global web of silent support. No logos, no ads, no influencers. People just gave and received and passed it forward. One man in Japan donated bicycles to single mothers in rural towns. Girl in Kenya started a sewing circle for survivors of abuse. A blind musician in Italy taught music to refugee children. None of them ever met Keanu, but they were part of him now, part of the fire he started, not a fire that destroyed, but one that warmed. One winter morning, Greg received a package at the lighthouse. It was unmarked. Inside was a photograph. Keanu. Older now, sitting under a tree, guitar in hand, surrounded by village children in Sri Lanka. No press, No crew dot, just music, smiles, and peace dot. The back of the photo said, "This is enough." Greg framed it, but didn't hang it in the lobby dot. He placed it in a drawer dot, because some things are meant just to be held. Not shown dot. A few years later, after a heavy storm, part of the lighthouse roof collapsed. While fixing it, Jamal found something buried inside the old beams. A wooden carving. A dove. Smooth. Simple. And beneath it, scratched into the wood, 5 faded words: "Believe in people, anyway, always." By now, children had grown. The once forgotten students became leaders. The abused became protectors. The hungry became givers. And the world, still loud, still cruel at times, had one more quiet army walking through it. Not with fame. Not with money. But with purpose. And it all started the day a man walked into a small bank in the rain and had his ID thrown on the floor. No one knows where Keanu Reeves is now. Some say he moved to a remote mountain village. Some say he teaches at a hidden school. Others say he simply walks from place to place, asking one question wherever he goes: how can I help? And when people look confused, he smiles gently and says, "That's okay." Most people don't know how to answer at first. Then he helps anyway. Without needing a reason. Without needing to be right. Without needing to be seen. The world often praises the loudest voices. But every now and then, it remembers the quiet ones. The ones who build with no credit. Give with no camera. And love without needing to be loved back. Like the man who once held a choking girl in the rain. And just walked away because her breath returning was enough. And maybe that's the only legacy that ever matters.